The Chicago Bears may not be able to avoid a huge distraction moving forward. All arrows point to them being the league's choice for the HBO training camp show Hard Knocks. And a question: is there a Hard Knocks curse? Just like the Madden cover curse. Another question: is the extra exposure? Is it actually worth it? And what's up? I'm Sean. This is Sports Talk Bears. We're building something special here. We're driving towards 5,000 subscribers. So if you like this, just hit the subscribe button. Would love to have you. So let's answer some of these questions. The one thing that could be good and bad news: the Bears, most likely they'll be asked, or most truthfully forced, to be on Hard Knocks. And for those of you who may not know, it's a show that each year, it's in partnership with the NFL that follows the team through training camp. Cameras have an all-access pass to the ins and outs of the team as they prepare for the upcoming season, right? So how can a team be forced? There's some rules here. If an NFL team hasn't made the playoffs over the previous 2 seasons, they have a new head coach, or they've been on the show in the last 10 years, they can be forced to do it if none of these apply. A team could be forced to do it if they meet that criteria and no other team has volunteered. That surprisingly, that's happened before. But a lot of teams, from owners to coaches to players, namely George McCaskey, they don't want to do it. And George McCaskey's wishes might get tested this year. I'm going to go to a story here on BearsDigest.com. You guys, I always want to give credit. Check this story out. So the Bears board chairman, he was asked about his team appearing on Hard Knocks last year, and he famously said, there's a number of teams that have compelling stories to tell on Hard Knocks. When asked if the Bears were one of them, he said, 31 others. It's possible McCaskey's power of persuasion with the league, that might be tested because they're one of only 3 teams that can't say no to Hard Knocks. What are the other 2 teams? The Denver Broncos and the Saints. So once again, we're one of just 3 teams who can be forced to do Hard Knocks in this upcoming year. Based on how unexciting these other teams are right now, Chicago, they feel like an absolute lock. I mean, there isn't much new going on in New Orleans. The Broncos are due to cut ties with Russell Wilson, and if even Cortland Sutton leaves, even Jerry Jeudy might leave. They're going to kind of be stripped down a little bit, kind of a dumpster fire, possibly starting over. So there's likely no escape this year, and we'll be watching the inside story at Halas Hall this year. The Bears are just an interesting team, though. Right now, frankly, for every reason you can think of, with the number 1 pick possibly being Caleb Williams or Fields, staying with all the pressure in the world, along with an extra preseason game, more on that shortly, it's just going to be a circus, and the organization might as well just embrace the chaos, right? So let's look at the example here. Let's look at the history of teams being on Hard Knocks. I'm going to drop down that story. Is there a Hard Knocks curse? In some circles, it's looked as on par with the Madden cover curse. So let's look at it. So there's been a total of 18 teams that have participated in the preseason version of the program. 8 of those teams have gone on to post winning records, while 7 have made the playoffs. Those numbers may not seem great on the surface, but it's important to remember something. The NFL's criteria for selecting a Hard Knocks participant, among the most important, is that, once again, any team that's made the playoffs in the last 2 seasons can opt out of the show. In essence, good teams are seldom on the show, so it skews the numbers. Often, and this is quite often, the NFL's most successful teams, they've been able to avoid participating in the program at all. Sure, some quality franchises have volunteered to be on the program, but those are few and far between. So knowing that, it's actually somewhat impressive that 7 teams have made the playoffs after being on the show. And while no participant has gone on to win a Super Bowl, a Hard Knocks assignment won't be what helps a team from reaching it, in my opinion. I think we need to embrace this and enjoy it. Realistically, though, it's doubtful that being on the show is a benefit to a team like the Bears. We have postseason aspirations, so how is the distraction a positive? And we're talking about intense media scrutiny inside the building. It's foolish to say it won't impact our team's performance and that it's not a distracting influence. Then we also have a regime that greatly benefits from playing everything close to the vest. You saw it last year. You're seeing it play out this year. And it's to the point that those that are the source of leaks, they've been fired. Remember the Cliff Stein removal after 23 years with the team. I can direct you to one of my previous shows if you want to check that out. It's really compelling. And it also shows the absolute way that our president, Warren, and our GM Poles, They are so sold out to keep things inside of Halas Hall secret that it's actually you almost haven't seen it before. So I can show you where that story is if you want to check it out. But now a lot of that effort that's going to be pulled back, this effort for secrecy, and it's doubtful the front office is going to love that. Despite this, a few teams have defied the odds and secured a spot in the playoffs after being on the Hard Knocks spotlight. So let's talk about that. Most notably, the 2010 New York Jets. They stand out for their postseason success. They reached the AFC Championship game only to fall short against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this achievement, it marks the highest level of postseason success for a Hard Knocks team to date, but it's an exception rather than the rule, and we've talked about why. We can also talk about last year. We had the Aaron Rodgers Achilles injury. I'm not so superstitious that I would attribute that to a Hard Knocks curse, so let's move on. More recently, the 2020 Los Angeles Rams, they managed to win a playoff game while under the Hard Knocks microscope. So, their journey ended in the divisional round, though, if you remember, with the loss to the Packers. The outcome is just a reminder that even teams capable of overcoming the Hard Knocks curse to some extent, the path to the Super Bowl glory, it just remains steep and challenging, and that goes to say for any team, regardless if they're on the show or not. So in this case, I think the Bears would be voluntold instead of volunteering. They'll not have an actual choice of whether or not to do it. I just think it's going to happen. On the positive side, let's look at a recent team. There likely wasn't a better PR move or a better way to increase interest in a team than the exposure the Detroit Lions got from their Hard Knock seasons. The likability of the team and their coach, it translated so well to the screen. I mean, Hard Knocks turned Dan Campbell into an absolute media star. He's just a guy that's tough not to root for. And I'm saying this as a Bears fan, don't disown me, but man, is he likable. And Hard Knocks had a lot to do with that. How likable was he? I forced my wife to watch it, and in the end, she was threatening to get a Lions jersey. Of course, that's forbidden here. I said that would not stand here, but it just goes to show how far the show goes to increase a fan base beyond the norm, beyond the host city. While the allure of the increased media exposure and fan engagement, it's super understandable. The ultimate goal of winning a Lombardi trophy that could be better served by maintaining a low profile during the preseason. I mean, that's absolutely true, but we're already going to be in this situation. Having a low profile, it's absolutely impossible. The Bears are the story of the offseason, the story of the draft. We're just the story of the combine, and it's just going to build from there. As a fan, it's going to be fun. There's also a few things to look for with the Hall of Fame inductions as well. With 3 players going in, it's almost a certainty that the Chicago Bears will be playing in the Hall of Fame preseason kickoff game to start the season. This could be the first time that we see Caleb Williams or MHJ in a Bears uniform if we go that route. The buzz about the offseason leading up to this is just going to be at a fever pitch. Training camp is going to be under a microscope anyways. We might as well just invite the cameras in. And this year, it just feels a little different because frankly, it is. So you guys, really appreciate the community that we are building together. Like I said, hit the subscribe button, bear down everyone, and enjoy this off season. We'll talk soon. See you.